Hey, it's your financial maven, Samantha Mittman-Besnoff, CPA. And for the last 30 years, yes, 30 years in the accounting world, I absolutely love sharing my insights and passion about money for individuals, entrepreneurs, and small business owners. Knowing your money and hopefully feeling less stressed about your money is what I call being financially empowered. Welcome to the Your Financial Maven podcast. This is part 2 of my conversation with Morgan Anderson, enrolled agent. I hope you enjoy. I mean, here's the thing. The IRS, I know people have heard it. I've seen it in my Facebook groups with CPAs that they've lost documents in 21, 22, or shredded documents or whatever that was. Are you seeing clients that are like, I filed that, I paid that, and now I'm getting notices?
Yes.
That is adding to this as well. This isn't just a mistake you made in your sales tax or your payroll tax or your income taxes. Unfortunately, the IRS, even some state departments of revenues, are having some issues. I still blame COVID. I still think there's some issues with that, the transitioning. But how do you help your clients with something like that? That they know they did this, they have the records to show, but they're still dealing with frustration when they're talking to IRS agents or even at the state level.
Yeah, and this is a pretty prevalent issue right now because COVID, one of the worst things that could have happened was that our federal and state governments shut down. Before that, they had these systems, these well-oiled machines in place. And I know you heard, I'm sure, through the various CPA magazines and the newsletters we all get, what the IRS did is at their mail processing centers, they would load all of the mail into boxes and they would go into their cafeterias and into tractor trailers. And there was no organization. It was just shove it all in there and we'll deal with it later.
Right. Which, hello?
We're in 2024 and still records have been lost
Yeah.
and misplaced, shredded.
Or they're duplicating notices that they had already sent to people because they don't have it noted in their system. I mean, don't get me wrong, they have systems in place, but you're right, it got all messed up because it's crazy people are getting these notices, even on the local level here in Pennsylvania.
Absolutely. And the states did the same thing. They just stacked stuff up because nobody was in office to deal with it. Things got lost. Anytime you're sending something to the federal or state or local government, if you are mailing it, mail it certified.
Thank you. Thank you for
Always,
saying that.
always,
Always.
always,
Certified
always.
receipt return, the little green
Yes.
card. And I
Yep.
know it costs a little extra when you mail it, but if you're sending a check, you're sending in your return, you're sending in a response to the notice, you're amending your return, send it certified receipt return. I will do that for clients where, for whatever reason, I cannot electronically file. I will tell them it is being sent certified receipt return. I will get the green card back and I will upload it into the portal to show you.
Yep.
Because, thank
Absolutely.
you for saying that, because I'll say that for other things too, and not just when it goes to the IRS. If you're mailing some insurance document or other important documents, send them certified receipt return.
Yes, because think about this. So USPS, as much as we all rely on it, is a federal government program.
It is a federal government program. It's going through a rough spot.
It is going through a rough spot. So I recently moved and I sent out, here's our new address card. I'm betting probably 85% actually made it where it was going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had 2 returned to me that I know the address was correct, clearly written. Called the person, I'm like, "Did you move?"
Right.
Like, "No." Like, this came back
We
to me. I get
moved.
mail for people who moved a long time ago. I mean, it happens to all of us, and unfortunately, I think they are, like you said, going through a system adjustment as well.
Well, I think people don't understand. So when I first started out in my accounting journey almost 30 years ago, I actually audited school districts for the state of Pennsylvania. I was part of the Department of Bureau of School Audits for the Department of Auditor General. And It's government, and their technology, their computers are not the latest and the greatest. I was working on DOS and Lotus, which was precursor to Excel. We would have printers to generate our number generator to do our pulls for our audits of what, things will pull, and it was the paper with the holes for those that
The
like my
dot
kids,
matrix
dot
ones.
matrix. So
Yes.
for my kids who are in their 20s and the youngers, it was sheets of paper with little holes on the side that stuck to the printer to hold it in the printer, and it would
Yep.
just do dot matrix. Governments are not necessarily working with the latest and greatest. They are trying. The IRS is trying now to do things. They have their own portal. Log into your irs.gov account, which I highly recommend every taxpayer utilizes. If you are filing jointly, each of you needs your own account because it is based off of your individual social security number. They're starting to do it for businesses now, sole proprietors, I think LLCs and partnerships. And I'm not sure if they've done it yet for S Corps or C Corps, but now as they're transitioning to that, are you recommending that to your clients also? Because you can pull your transcripts, you can
Absolutely.
pull your stuff off of there. You can give power of attorney to your mold agent, your CPA to pull the stuff.
Yes, absolutely. They're coming out with more and more tools for the taxpayer to help you.
Yes.
But think about this, why are they doing that? Because when there is a problem, they can say,
Yes.
"Wait a minute, taxpayer, we've given you these tools that you can access and use. You've chosen not to access it." So think about it, it's a double-edged sword, but
It is
it
a
is
double-edged sword.
extremely beneficial. For self-employed people, I wanna highlight this, go on and pull your wage and income transcripts, because that is everything that has been reported through a third party tied to your Social Security number that needs to be represented on your tax return.
Yep. I tell that to my clients all the time that when you see an official tax document, a W 2, a 1099 for interest, dividends, miscellaneous, non employee compensation, the IRS is getting a copy. The state is getting a copy. Local will get a copy here in Pennsylvania for earned income stuff, but they're getting copies. So they know you have the income. They know that. And there's a big push for independent contractors, gig workers, who should be reporting their income. And there's a big push for small business owners to send out those 1099 miscellaneous or non employee comp forms. And I am a big proponent to my clients and say, you should be receiving a W 9 from all vendors and contractors that you know are not incorporated to verify if you have to send them a tax form. And I say, if they choose not to report it, that's on them. But you are obligated to provide them with that.
Yes. Again, another reason to have your accountant, your CPA being like a member of your board. They need to understand your business to such a degree that they can give you that kind of pointed guidance. And yes, it does cost you money to meet with them, but let me tell you something, your return on investment for that relationship and for them having that transparency with your business is going to save you money with tax planning and strategies that you put in place.
And even if you get into tax debt, it's still gonna help you.
Yes, it will. Absolutely, absolutely. Leverage those specialists around you to compensate for everything that should be taken care of that maybe you don't have an inclination even to do. This is why we hire bookkeepers.
Right. And I've had business clients and I do the bookkeeping, I say accounting work because I look at it beyond just helping them with their transactions. I am helping them with more than just, and I will do transactional work. I love it. I don't have a problem with that. But I also educate because I try to tell them you are a part of this process. And I've had some clients who are just like, you do it. Okay, I'm going to do it, but I'm going to educate you along the way. And I'm going to every month or every quarter review stuff, send it through the portal and say XYZ. You may not look at it, but I am trying to educate you. I started with my individual clients on my tax software. They do a 3-year comparison of your numbers. And I will take a copy of that and I'll cross out the social security numbers and the names, and I'll do a video recording of just the numbers. So you can't even tell who the client is. It's done very securely. And I walk through the differences and I'll say, look at how it was 2 years ago to where you're at now. Here are the reasons why.
Love that.
And they do. They've been enjoying that because they can see the difference, with tax law changes from 2017 for both businesses and individuals. Some things got put on hold because of COVID. Well, 22 and 23, they all came back and they're set to expire in 25, depending on where we're at with Congress and laws sunsetting. And I think people need to understand that it's going to be a rough couple of years with taxes as well, because we just don't know right now. We can't tell you as
Right.
tax planners where things could be, but this is where they're at now. So let's plan now
Yes.
because we don't know. And I
Absolutely.
think it's important that people pay attention. I'm switching more to small business and entrepreneurs because they're paying more attention during the year than individual tax clients. But I think individual tax clients need to pay just as much of attention during
I
the year.
completely agree.
Yeah.
I
So they
completely
don't get into
agree.
debt with their taxes.
Absolutely. It's so funny for as much as money rules our lives and our businesses,
Yes.
how easy it is and that natural inclination to shy away from focusing on it.
Yeah. Well, I get clients all the time. I don't focus on taxes till tax season. So, okay, I'll do your return and then their return refund is less or they owe more and then they get mad at me. I've been reaching out to you all year long, you know.
Do you know that is a common complaint with all of the CPAs and EAs and accountants that I know? The most common complaint is my clients come to me in March saying, "Okay, my return's due next month. Here it is. What can we do?" Well, you're talking past
Right.
tense at that point,
That year's
right?
over.
We should have gotten together halfway through the year and sat down and seen where you were quarterly.
The only thing really you can do before you file the return on April 15th is make your contribution to your IRA and have it count to the prior year. I hate to say that. You can't do an estimated
You're
tax at
right.
that point for the prior year.
Right. Yeah, you're
The
right.
retirement thing, you have a little bit of leeway, like Roth IRA, traditional IRA, you have a little bit of leeway, but it's too late. You come to me at March 15th, too late. That was
Yeah.
last year.
And this is why I say your relationship with your accountant, your CPA, your EA, that is one of the most important relationships you as an individual, as a taxpayer, as a business owner, as a self-employed person, that is the most important relationship that I could encourage you to focus on.
I agree. I've had a couple clients who come to me who've already been in tax debt and they've worked out some plans and not just tax debt, but just debt. And they had their plans. And I had that client for about 5, 6 years. And by the time they decided to move on in the fifth or sixth year, they were pretty much done with their debt because they knew they had to work through this. Yeah, they still had some installment payments with the IRS, they still had some notices they had to work through, but they were willing to realize that they can get out of it. They've got to work at it. But yeah, it's important to pay attention. And of course, if you get to that point and you need help, what you do, Morgan, and what you provide can help people to feel less scared walking through that maze of stuff. Is there anything else, any other important, really nuggets for either individuals or business owners that really can help them in this process so that they're not freaking out and sticking those notices in the drawer and 10 years later going, holy crap,
Yeah,
where am I at now?
and this is a great point. I'm glad you asked this because in every relationship and everything that you do, there's a power position and there's a submissive position. If you are getting notices from the IRS or state or local government about a bill, a tax bill, or anything, this applies to anything. If you set it aside because of some fear that's popping in your head, you're giving up your power position with it. If you say, "You know what? No matter what it is," and think about all the challenges that you've faced, and you've always gotten past it, no matter what it is, health, financial, relationship, you've always been able to come out the other side. So there is always a solution no matter what you're facing. Tax bills are the same thing. Don't give up the power position by letting them be in the lead. You take the lead position, open it up, and say, okay, no matter what it is, I can solve it. Because it is just another thing that you need to deal with. You can, as a lot of people say, put on your big girl
Yep.
panties or your
Pull up your
big
big girl
guy
panties.
boxers
Yep.
and just face it and say, okay, what is the problem? Identify it. And then you're taking away that fear of the unknown.
And it goes back to also, it could be a mistake.
It could be. Do you know how many audit? Notifications. It always starts with a matching program identification. There is a problem with your tax return. Can you send us X, Y, and Z because here's the number that we got and this is not represented on your return? Or you claim three dependents, we only have social security numbers for two. If you ignore that notice, then they move forward with an assessment. And it could have easily been handled if you would have just responded.
Yeah, and they do make mistakes. I mean, I had worked on a client, I was with an accounting firm a couple decades ago. Client went from one CPA to our practice and got a notice from our local level. Now, I will tell you, the local tax procedures are not as strict or stringent or explained in detail like the state and the IRS are. I
Go
and
figure.
go figure. And we had a new client who came to us because he got this notice and he was mad about what the other accountant did, and we needed to resolve it. Fine, not a big deal. What happened was, in the state of Pennsylvania, your retirement, the 1099-R you may receive for pulling out of your retirement, is not earned income and not taxable in the state of PA. Well, there might be some exceptions, but at the local level, it most likely is not taxable. Now, this was back at a time when we weren't doing things electronically. We were filling out returns maybe electronically, but printing them out and having to mail them. There wasn't this file online. And you had to attach all tax documents to the returns. Well, this prior accountant had accidentally included a 1099 retirement form. It got stuck to the return when he had
Okay.
stapled a bunch of papers. Got
Sure.
mailed to the
Easy to do.
local. It can happen. Got mailed to the local, and they sent a notice saying you owe 1% of your, like, I don't know, it was like $50,000 retirement, whatever it was. And I'm like, well, no, that's not true. And I called up the local, and I am not kidding you. The guy on the other line goes, well, it was attached to the return. It wasn't on the return, but it was attached to it. So they owe the money on that. And I said, show me in your
Wrong.
regulations where it says that. I had to go to his supervisor and I said, what do I need to do? Because they are not paying this, they don't owe it. It was
Right.
accidentally stapled. And he told me what I had to reference. And I'm like, please teach your, you know, people that work for you, your supervisor, whatever, that they have to understand this. So people need to realize you're right. When they get that initial notice, it is usually the audit notice of, hey, we have this, you had this, we say you owe this. You have to prove them wrong to a degree. I agree with you on that. It's so important to read that letter, please.
Don't be afraid of it.
Right.
Whatever it is, you can solve it. And if it is so big that you think it's beyond your capabilities to handle, which we're going to actually talk about that in a second,
Yes, yes, please do.
but if it's that intimidating to you, call for help.
Yes.
Call for
Yes.
help.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Morgan was mentioning before we started recording and all, we were just chit chatting a little. And tell me about the program that you're working on, and then also where my listeners can find you.
Yes.
So please tell us about this wonderful program that is coming up.
Absolutely. So there are different debt thresholds when you owe taxes where it makes sense to hire a professional to get involved and where it doesn't. I can't tell you how many people call me and say, "Oh my gosh, I've got this notice from the IRS and I don't know what to do and I can't sleep at night and oh my gosh, help me." And we start talking about it and they say, "I owe $10,000 to the IRS." And I'm not saying that is something to sneeze at. I know that's a lot of money. But it doesn't warrant investing in a professional to get involved. So, what I'm doing is we're putting together a webinar that will teach you how to handle those types of situations yourself. It doesn't make sense to pay somebody $1,000 or $2,000 to handle that. So, with this webinar, and we're going to be able to give you a coupon code.
Yep. And I'll have it all in the podcast description. We'll have all the links to that. Absolutely.
And this webinar is going to walk you through how to handle it from assessing the debt. How much should you offer to pay if you can? What to say if you can't? What number to call? Best times to call so you're not
Yes,
sitting on hold
as
for
we
2
know, the IRS
hours.
isn't always there or able to pick up.
Oh,
Believe me, as
yeah.
a tax professional, we have a tax professional line, and we can't even get through to that half the time.
No,
It's
sometimes you can't.
frustrating.
Now
Yes.
there are tips of
There
when
are
to
tips,
call and
yes.
best times,
Yes.
but we're also gonna teach you what to say, so you represent yourself the best way possible. how to pitch it, what to say if they try pushing back on you, and empower you with your rights to stand firm with what you're offering
Yep,
to
because there are
pay.
taxpayer rights and there are
Yes, there
things
are.
that you as a taxpayer have a right and you can say, "No, I can do this," or,
No, I can do this.
yeah.
Yes. And then how to ask to save on those penalties.
Yes, definitely. And I think also, and I'm sure you're going to mention this in the webinar too, is whenever you call either the IRS or the state agency or even your local, get the name. IRS
An
agents
ID
have
number.
ID number. IRS, I don't
Yeah.
know about most states, but the IRS has an IRS ID number and they actually will tell you it right when they pick up the phone. It's kind of fast when they say it. So ask again.
Yes,
So if you have
every
to call back
single time.
every single time, because if you have to call back, you can say, I spoke to agent such and such, agent number such and such on this date and time. It should be in my file and it should be noted.
Yes.
Absolutely a must. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. So these are the keys and the tips and tricks we are going to share with you in this webinar so you know how to effectively handle this yourself so you don't have to be afraid.
Yes, and when this episode does come out, we'll make sure you have that link because it isn't gonna be a one-time thing where, oh, it's gonna be heard and then you can't get to it. So we'll certainly have all of that coordinated with Morgan when that comes out. I'm excited, actually. I'm excited to listen to it as well because obviously I needed a little bit of a reminder on how to work with the IRS for my stuff that I dealt with too, but, it happens.
You know what though? But this just goes to show it doesn't matter who you are.
Right.
Inevitably, we're all going to have some type of hiccup with our tax accounts at some point. I had a situation, gosh, it was 12 years ago. Maybe not that far. Maybe 2006. Oh
Okay.
gosh, dating myself here.
Yeah.
Um, my accountant had electronically, because even though I'm in the tax world, tax returns is not my specialty.
Right. You're dealing with the debt issues that happen after
Yes.
you file.
Yes, exactly. That's my area of specialty is just tax debt. But because I know that is not my specialty, I have an accountant. And she e-filed my tax return and there was some hiccup in the system and it didn't
Oh,
go through.
no. Oh, geez.
And she didn't learn about it for 6 weeks.
Oh my goodness.
Whatever problem with her program was,
Just it didn't say whether or not it went through. Oh, wow.
no, it happened to everybody that she had
Oh,
electronically
what a
filed for.
mess. Yeah.
And the thing is, the IRS wasn't wanting to give me a penalty abatement for a first time
Oh,
issue.
right.
And I was like, "Wait a minute, hold on. No, I know you have to."
Right. Right.
And so I walked through it, but it took, luckily, I know what to say, I know how to present it, but it took knowing the right key phrases to say and the statutes to get my way because everybody else was having a problem with it. I contacted my accountant, I'm like, "Tell them to say this."
Right. Right.
And so she contacted everybody, and everybody ended up getting the penalties abated for
Which
it.
is good because
Yeah,
unfortunately, it was the tax software. I mean, and that is something also, again, we can only do so much, and I always double check to make sure the acknowledgments have come through, and I always tell taxpayers and my clients, when they get filed, the acceptance that I give you is that it's been accepted as filed, doesn't mean they're not gonna review it. It just
right,
means that they're recording it was filed by the due date.
right,
Big
right.
difference.
Yes, very big difference, but it goes to show it happens to everybody
It
at some
does.
point.
It does. I mean, my husband said we need a new accountant. I said, "Not a bad idea." I said, "Not a bad idea, dear. Might not be a bad idea, have another accountant review my work. For me, my return."
It just it happens.
It does
And
happen.
and I don't know about you, but every single accountant, CPA, EA I know, their return is always the last one to be
Uh-huh.
done. And
Uh-huh.
at that point, you're so tired,
You
your eyes are
are.
crossing.
I mean, you think about it. So I had my son, he'll be 23. So I started when he was about a year old doing just tax work at other firms. Just during tax season, a couple days a week, I'd go in, whatever. And then, of course, I continued even through a time where I wasn't doing tax work. And these last few years with COVID have been, I think, the worst. And I think people need to understand that tax professionals are under a tremendous amount of stress because of these time crunches, because of the expectations and the changes in the law that are happening midway through tax season. The
How
most
about
frustrating.
this? All
Yes.
the extensions.
Yes.
So, for those of you not in the tax world, every time there is a bad storm, all the counties affected get their tax due dates pushed out for different time frames. It's never even like, okay, it's a automatic 3 month. Some of them it's 2 months, some of them it's 6 months.
And keeping on top of that, it's crazy.
And if you are a self-employed person, think about this. It's going to mess up what you know your tax rate is for your estimated tax payments for 24. And then you're filing in 25 and then your 24 is behind. I mean, there's so many current tax policies that are making our world so muddied. So, I told you all at the start of this is going to be entertaining. I hope
Yeah,
you
I hope
found it
it's been
entertaining
entertaining, yes.
because we've been geeking out on all
I
these
know.
tax topics together. I hope you found it as enjoyable to listen to as it's been to be a part of this conversation.
It has been. I mean, you work with the debt stuff, but it's important to talk about all of those things that play into that role because, yeah, this is huge. With these extensions, it could be at the federal level, but is it at the state level? Like, again, there are things that you as a taxpayer really need to be paying attention to and understanding. And if you don't know, which is okay, talk to that professional. At the end of the day, talk to that professional. And I might get in trouble for saying this, but I have said it before. I will get people who will set up meetings with me and ask for how cheap can I do my taxes? And all you do is put numbers on a piece of paper. So why are you charging me X amount of dollars? I'm charging you what I charge you because that is a skill set. That is a lot of learning. And I'm the one paying attention to extensions have been changed, when due dates have been changed, when tax laws have been changed. We're both having to still keep up. You might not prepare returns, but you still have to keep up on all those laws as you're dealing with these debt relief items. So I think people need to understand that if you go to get your return prepared and all you worry about is how much it's costing you, you need to make sure who's ever preparing that return is paying attention and ask the questions. I don't care where you're going. I don't like some of the tax preparation companies, especially certain
You
ones
mean
that
the
have
looks like
ads.
drive-through
Drive through
McDonald's?
McDonald's. I'm sorry. I know that for some people that's what they can afford, and I absolutely appreciate that. But ask the questions when you're there because they're supposed to be trained as well and to understand this stuff. Ask the questions. Do I get an extension because I was in an emergency flood area? When is this due? It's okay to ask those questions, and you should be asking those questions.
You need to be your number one advocate when it comes to dealing with anybody, doctors, your tax professional, anybody, and don't let them intimidate you into not asking questions that are on your mind because they are providing a service related to your finances.
Yes. And I will tell certain people if they tell me all they have is a W 2 and maybe a 1099 interest or dividend form, I will say, honestly, the free file on the IRS website you can use. Now, most states are starting to be connected. I know Pennsylvania just stated that they are part of the direct file for free filing. Your local, if you're in state of Pennsylvania, you can go online directly to most of your local taxes and do it yourself. If you have very simple tax documents, I highly recommend that. Go ahead and do that. And I have some friends and people who just say, I just can't do it. And I'll say, okay, if you're making under a certain amount, I think it's 75 or 85,000, go sign up for VITA, volunteer income tax assistant, and have them help you with your federal. Your state and local are fairly simple. They're fairly straight tax rates. It's the federal one that has all the different credits.
It will, and to your point, if you have, like you said, just a W-2 or maybe some interest that you get a 1099 for, those are very basic tax returns. There's not a lot of laws, there's not a lot of wiggle room with what you can claim. If you are claiming home mortgage interest,
If you're well, most people
if
can't
you're
itemize, right?
itemizing,
But because of the tax law change, but yes.
and that's what my point is. If you've got anything beyond a basic, what we used to call 1040EZ filing, you're not claiming anything that would put you outside of the standard deductions, then fine. Do the free file, do TurboTax. But if you've got a business, if you are a day trader, if you are self-employed,
You're getting tips, you're working in the restaurant
yes.
field. Yes.
What can you deduct? Like, you need to be working with somebody who is a specialist that can help you take advantage of everything that you're allowed to claim and who can keep you out of trouble for some of those things you
Yes.
may think you want to claim, but you're not able to.
Right. And I will go back to the whole using software on your own is fine, but I will tell you, especially in the state of Pennsylvania, I don't know for other states that have local taxes as well. But in the state of Pennsylvania, for the local earned income tax, you can't file with TurboTax or any of the software. You cannot file directly to those agencies. You can prepare it on there to see where you end up, but you must go to those local agencies and either do it by hand or go onto their website and file that way. Because I have run across clients who've moved into Pennsylvania or even Pennsylvania clients who haven't filed local for a couple years because they didn't know that their tax software doesn't do it for them.
Wow, yeah, that is a great point, and see, I'm out in Utah, so we're different out here, but I will tell you, the problem with the software, the do-it-yourself software, is it doesn't know what it doesn't know,
Very
right?
true. Very
So
true.
you can say, "Oh, yeah, I'm just a W-2 and I have no 1099 INTs," and, it is only taking what you're putting into the software and moving forward from there. So if you omit information, it doesn't know.
Right. But the IRS knows, the state knows.
Yes, it does. And somebody that you're sitting on a call with who's preparing your returns that knows you, that knows the situation, it's like, wait a minute. You were self employed last year. What happened with that?
Right. And that is whenever I take on a new client, I need to at least see 1 year or up to 2 years of prior year
Yes.
returns. I need to see them. I need to know. Well, I prepared it myself. Okay. I still need to take a look at them. And for my newer clients, and I'm trying to work on my older clients, I'm going to get that power of attorney or the form to have access to your transcripts as a requirement because I need to see your prior 2 years of transcripts.
And folks, let me tell you, from just being in the tax industry all these years, that is the sign of an excellent person. Okay.
Oh,
The
thank
that is
you.
the
Thank
sign
you. I'm
of
learning.
somebody who is going further than just the bare minimum to make sure they're looking out for you. So this is the kind of conversation you want to have with your trusted tax professional. You want somebody who is that invested into representing you on paper the best way they can. That is
Yeah,
excellent.
thank you. I
Yeah.
mean, it's something that I started to do when I started to realize, especially during COVID, I wasn't getting all the information, or my clients weren't getting all their information because of different things. And I started with those clients that I wasn't sure. I'm like, okay, let me pull the transcripts. But in the last year or two, any new client, I'm like, I am going to request this. That's why you need the irs.gov account because I'm going to request it electronically so that I can get to it faster, so I can help
That
you.
is phenomenal. Great.
It is phenomenal. I use a secure client portal that actually has permission with the IRS to pull the transcripts right into it. TaxDome, shout out to you. You're an
I
awesome
use them
software
as
that I
well.
use.
Hey, there's a double.
Yes. Woo! Yes. But again, you're right. Thank you. It is very important. This has been fabulous. We could probably
I
talk hours. I know there were some other specific questions, but I think it's just that general conversation with another enrolled agent about how it could lead to tax debt. These are the things that can potentially lead you there. I know payroll is messy and you definitely want to hire probably a payroll professional, but you have to pay attention to that too, because I've heard horror stories with payroll companies when they're switching aren't paying the things they're supposed to be paying because they're not getting the information.
I know we're trying to wrap this up, but I have 2 more
Yes,
places to
but this is
take that.
important.
Okay.
Yes,
Number
please,
1,
please.
make sure the people who work for you are classified properly. There's the 1099 contractors.
They're not employees. Please note they're not employees.
Yes, and
Yes.
there is actually an IRS publication, a form that you can fill out that will help you correctly classify them because I've represented a lot of small businesses who got caught in that. And so here's what happens with that. So you pay these people as contractors 100% of what you owe them. Then the IRS comes in a couple of years later and says, wait a minute. If you look at the responsibilities they had for your business, they should have been W 2 employees. So now we're going to compile 941s, which is your quarterly withholding report. For all those people you paid 1099, and we're gonna charge you all of the income tax, Social Security, and Medicare that should have been paid for
Should
them.
have been covered.
Now,
Yep.
meanwhile, you can't ask these people for the money back. Okay, keep that in mind. So that's on your business. And then we're gonna charge you 100% accuracy related penalty.
And people get nailed on that, and you are absolutely right. Not only is there the form to help the classification, but the IRS's website, if you go to their website and type in contractor versus employee, they have a plethora of information about that classification, and I will tell my small business clients all the time, because 'cause they'll say to me, "These are my employees." "No." And "These are contract." "No, they're not your employees," or "No, they should be your employees." And I will tell them, "You need to properly classify them, and here's the difference, or you're gonna get in trouble."
Yes, and I have seen it bite so many small business owners, and they come to me and they're like, "Wait a minute, but I paid these people." I'm like, "Yeah, but you had a
You owe
duty."
them their Social Security and their
Yes,
Medicare.
and the income tax that they should have paid. Because what ends up happening is these people then file their tax returns not knowing what is going on. They end up having tax debt issues on their own if they're not paying estimated tax pay. I mean, it creates this huge cycle. So here's the other reason why the IRS is so aggressive with payroll tax. So let's say you have Empower Inc. and you have 10 employees and you're withholding the income tax and the employee's contribution of Medicare and Social Security from their tax, but you're not paying it over to the government.
Oh, you're just
You're
withholding it,
just
but not
withholding
paying
it
it.
and you're
Oof.
using that to
Yeah.
operate your business. Well, this is what happens with a lot of small businesses that find themselves underfunded or something happens to their cash flow. So technically, they see it as just I'm writing a paycheck to my employees and their pay is their net pay. And then, yeah, I've got this tax obligation. They don't think through it all the way of these taxes I'm actually withholding or I'm taking out of the pay that I owe my employees to hold it in trust to turn over to the government. So when that cycle breaks down and you're paying your employees the net payroll, but you're not paying the governments their portion, this is a trust tax. And the IRS and the state can pierce any corporate veil and hold anybody accountable who was involved with the decision of withholding the tax and not paying it over. And here's why they're so aggressive about it. When your employee at the end of the year gets a W-2 from you that says, "Here's what their pay was, here's how much in taxes you withheld," they take that W-2 and file their 1040. And most W-2 people, they've got a wife or a husband, they've got kids, they're owed a refund on their 1040. The IRS is never gonna say to them, "Oh, your employer may have told you that they held those taxes and paid us, but they didn't, so we're not paying you your refund." They pay it. They pay it to the employee. So then this is the cycle. If you critically think through the transactions, this is why they're so aggressive with payroll tax. And the same thing with states with sales tax. You collect it from the general public and hold it in trust to turn over to the state. And when you don't, it opens the door to them to being very aggressive. The states are more aggressive on sales tax and payroll tax, and the IRS is more aggressive on payroll tax because you collect it from somebody else and hold it in
Right, to
trust
then
to turn
remit it.
over. Yeah.
Very important. It's very important. And I will send out a newsletter a couple times a year, and every now and again, I'll put that back out there. I'm already starting to reach out to my business clients to say, okay, we need to make sure you go through all your vendors and everybody that you pay as an independent contractor. Make sure you get the W-9 in and make sure if they're over $600 and you didn't pay them by credit card, you paid them by check, we have to report this. And I cannot tell you how many times on the deadline when these are due in January that I am begging my clients to please get me this information because there's penalties involved because they're so worried about what the other person is going to say. And my point is that is on them. You are obligated to do this. You're obligated to withhold and remit when you need to when it comes to payroll. And you're right. Got to make sure your payroll company is doing what they're supposed to be doing as well. You can't just hand it over to them and think they're handling it all. You're so busy with your job, your business. I get it. Take a day, take a half a day, take a couple hours, review your finances. So important.
Do you know we had several times with clients who had a professional payroll company handling their payroll, and then all of a sudden they started getting payroll notices for unpaid taxes, and they're like, "Wait a minute, but this company handles my payroll." And what we've always found happened is these companies process your payroll and they automatically withdraw the money out of your bank account. If you don't have the money in your bank account for the full charge, they stop doing the tax payment part
Right, because there's no money in the
because there's
account.
no money in the account, and you may have put money in the account later, but it automatically stops that part of their program. And I can't tell you how many clients have come to me like, "Oh, I was using this payroll provider, and they were providing the checks and the 941s and the state equivalents, but then all of a sudden they stopped paying the taxes," and we'd go back through the bank account and like, "Oh, see, here's where you didn't have money in," and then they just automatically stop, and some will tell you, but most of them won't.
Some won't. So that's something else to know, that if you're having a payroll service help you and you don't have the money in the account, it will automatically stop the payment. So you need to be paying attention and making sure these things are getting done.
Yes.
Because I think this is important. People really need to be paying attention and kind of hopefully learning. So when they go forward, they're paying more attention throughout the year and not just right at the end of the year or during tax time when it's too late.
This has been so much fun. I wanna thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. Absolutely. So where can we find you?
Ooh, all over. No.
Okay.
You can find my company at goldenliontaxsolutions.com. Just think of a big gold lion, you know.
Oh, I love that.
Thank you.
Yes.
We named him Rex. Rex is
Oh,
amazing.
that's great.
But I'm on
That's awesome.
LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, we're on X. Don't ever hesitate. My direct phone number and email is on our website. Please connect with me if you have a question. I've been doing this for 25 years. As you can tell, I'm passionate about what I do and that I can help people. So don't ever hesitate. No question is too small.
Absolutely. And no question is too dumb or stupid either. Ask the
Mm-mm.
questions.
Always.
All right. Wonderful, Morgan. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I've loved it. I look
Absolutely.
forward to doing it again.
Yes, we definitely should do this again.
Okay, sounds good.
Follow, like, and subscribe to Your Financial Maven wherever you listen to your podcasts. And make sure that you leave your money stories or questions for me at www.yourfinancialmavenpodcast.com. I cannot wait to hear what you have to say about money. The purpose of this podcast is to provide general information on the subjects discussed. It is for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. It is not meant to resolve your specific financial needs or situations. Please consult with your CPA, tax, or financial professionals.
Your Financial Maven is hosted and produced by Samantha M. Besnoff, CPA, and Your Financial Maven, LLC. Editing is done by Chris Zarnock of KM Zen Creative. Music is written, composed, and performed by Daniel Shore.